Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Security Solutions TV. And today I am talking to one of my favorite people about one of my favorite things. We are talking with Mr. Andrew Elvish, our Global Marketing Director at Genetec, about the state of physical security and the future of security. Andrew, welcome back to the program.
Thanks very much, John. Isn't it interesting? Your favorite thing and my favorite thing, they're the same. I love that.
That's it. Hey, we're doing well. All right. So for people who maybe aren't familiar with the report that you've just released the Genetec 2026 State of Physical Security Report, which is the sixth in the series now. For people who may not be familiar with it, can you provide a little bit of background as to how it came about and why Genetec is releasing this report each year and how the information in the report is collated?
Sure thing, John. Well, it actually grew out of a little bit of like antsiness and boredom in 2020 when we had to sort of shut down and sit at our houses, and we were thinking about what we would use all of that time when we used to travel to trade shows. What would we do at that time? And one of the things we thought was, wouldn't it be great to do a comprehensive analysis of what's going on in the physical security space? Now, there are a lot of great analysts working in this space, and they do amazing work, but we've always found that there's a few gaps in the research. Maybe the reach isn't quite what we were hoping for, and a lot of it is just very manufacturer focused. We wanted to do a report that would speak to sort of the three big constituencies that we see in the physical security space, right? So we wanted something that spoke to what was going on in the minds of end users, security practitioners, what was going on in the minds of security integrators, our channel partners, and what was going on in the minds of manufacturers, our partners, and even our competitors. So we've gotten a really wonderful response over the last 6 years. Every year we get more and more responses because the reputation of the report gets bigger. And this year we thought we were setting a challenging goal. We were like, okay, we're going to get 5,800 responses this year. We were like, that'll be good coverage. However, what ended up happening surprised even me. We ended up with almost 8,000 respondents. And that was such a really, really encouraging sign. We got a lot of respondents from the Asia Pacific region. So it's nicely balanced with respondents from North America, South America, Europe, Middle East. And what I also really, really appreciate is it's equally balanced between sort of end users and channel partners, and sort of a smaller slice for manufacturers in there. So really, really good picture for readers. And this is our sixth report. It keeps getting better, more interesting every year, and it's still as ever free. So they can anybody who wants to read it can download it from genetec.com.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's dive into the report a little bit. So the report states that the boundary between digital and physical threats is disappearing, and as systems become more connected and protecting more IoT edge devices is now more of a core requirement. So what are the top 2 or 3 cyber physical security scenarios you expect Australian organisations to face in 2026? And what should security managers do to reduce their exposure?
Well, this is a really pressing question. I think it requires people to reframe their understanding of what our IoT networks really are in physical security. A lot of people think a camera is like a camera, like a traditional camera from the CCTV days where it was connected with coaxial cable to a matrix and you could switch the views on the cameras. That's not the case at all. Any of the new modern IP-based cameras you see hanging on a ceiling, on any kind of lamppost, those all have IP addresses. They're all little computers. And that's something I don't think people appreciate quite enough, is that those are all computers. They can all talk on the network and they can all initiate network traffic, because that's how we transmit images across an IP video surveillance network. And where we tend to fall down is on making sure that those endpoints are properly secured, and that we're thinking about who manufactures those endpoints. And I will tell you, the biggest culprit in this whole discussion is purchasing departments. And God bless them, but they're trained to go after best product, lowest price. Unfortunately, they don't also consider the vendor risk assessment. They don't consider the track record of cybersecurity flaws. And that's a really big issue when you optimize towards price. So we see a lot of cheaply made, poor from a cybersecurity perspective, really poor quality kit going up. And that's putting businesses at risk. And people are like, listen, if they want to look at my store or look in my office and the bad guy wants to look in there, it's not going to cause them much trouble. Most of the people and the bad fellows and gals out there, they don't care what's on your camera. They care about the network access. And, dollars to donuts, if you haven't done a good job of securing your cameras, I'm going to bet you haven't done a really good job of securing your network. And that is where they get the payoff. They can move laterally on your network. They can exfiltrate data. They can exfiltrate usernames, user data, credit card information. And then the headaches really start. And this is when you're up for fines. We've seen people, entire networks come down, executives losing their jobs. This is a very serious risk. And everybody should be putting cybersecurity and physical security really at the top of their minds. And of course, there are people who want to do physical damage to to physical security infrastructure, and that's where tools like camera integrity monitors that are monitoring for people who have moved the focus of the camera, who have shifted or spray painted over the lens, or who are trying to play funny games a la Hollywood movies. We can catch those really quickly with camera integrity monitor features directly within the platform. So it's not an easy world for physical security professionals. They kind of have to also be cybersecurity professionals as well.
Yeah, well, I think the camera integrity monitoring side of things is really important for a number of reasons, not just from the point of view of maintaining vision against people who might necessarily want to do nefarious things, but I mean, I'm sure everyone watching this has seen examples of whereby, for example, in a warehouse, a completely innocent, totally unassuming forklift driver, for example, has dumped a pallet of goods somewhere that's half a story high and is now blocking the direct vision of the camera that's leading in through the main warehouse door. Not intentionally, it's a total accident, but good monitoring will actually pick that up and say, hey, you need to move that or reposition the camera.
Yeah, and even better monitoring will tell you that, and it will initiate a workflow, send a ticket to your floor managers, and get them into a workflow system so that you can track it and you can show that as soon as you got that alert, you remediated it, and you can show, for a governance risk and compliance perspective, you can show the GRC managers or leaders within your organization that you took action very quickly. So this is coming into the point where physical security professionals are being looked to for more than just sitting in front of monitors looking at screens. They're being looked to manage workflows, to building resilience to the companies they work for, and more, and we see this in the report, John, more and more organizations are looking at their investment in physical security as less of something just for retrospective action and more for forward-thinking planning and resilience within the businesses where they're putting these investments into play.
Yeah. Now, following up on your point about, endpoints being threat vectors within the cybersecurity side of things, it's not just endpoint devices like cameras that we're looking at from a cybersecurity perspective, though. Your report lists a rise in things like phishing, ransomware, device hacking, and compromised credentials. Which of these is most likely to create, in your view, real-world physical impact on things like doors, camera sites, and so on in 2006?
To me, I think the biggest issue we're facing, and we've faced it for a long time, has to do with humans. Humans are often the weakest link in any cybersecurity program. We can get tricked, we get tired, we're not, our guards and defenses aren't up all the time. So it really comes down to educating the human beings in the physical and cybersecurity network, if you will. And that came through in the report as well, that the priority is really on education. education has become such a key topic. Yes, of course, hardening, credentials, making sure you have MFA or leveraging things like UB keys. Those are very, very important. Those are all part of cyber hygiene, but probably the most important part is education. And we can see within the organizations who responded to the report that educating individuals within their organizations just to simply not click on those links that are coming in, to really understand that when you're looking at an email, you have to ask more questions of it than just, oh, this looks like the email I'm expecting from so-and-so. You really have to understand who it is before you take action on it, because this opens up a world of pain. And we've seen it time and again, ransomware going into a network, locking down certain parts of the network, especially if those emails are going to physical security professionals who potentially have access credentials across very sensitive devices. This can cause huge issues within organizations. It can cause issues with not just your cameras, but with your access control system, with your ability to manage these systems, with the appliances you use. So really making sure that those humans who are sitting behind this piece of glass that you and I are talking through understand the risk, not just to the organization, but to them and to their colleagues, that they're playing an important role by just being a little bit circumspect when emails come in with links to be clicked on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, insider threats, both unwittingly and deliberate, is an interesting segue into our next discussion point, because I want to talk a little bit about AI. And obviously, AI has the ability to mitigate some of those threats by taking on some of those tasks, and also offers us a range of other opportunities. So AI is a major opportunity, but trust and auditability are significant problems, and defensibility as the break for AI. So AI and LLMs are now a key in 2026 priority, with end users seeing value in reducing alarm noise, prioritizing events, accelerating investigations. Where, in your opinion, will AI deliver the biggest operational win in 2026? Will it be faster investigations, fewer false alarms, or automation of repetitive tasks? And what, in your view, has to be in place to get decent ROI on AI? Because we're seeing, I don't know about you, but in my experience, it's becoming harder and harder to tell the difference between AI and BS.
Well, it's funny you should say that. I've been on the road for the past, just since after the holidays, talking to a lot of journalists. And and being at trade shows, and I'm seeing lots of, the industry and the state of the art that's going on. I would say, in my estimation, 90% of AI innovation in the physical security space right now is primarily innovation via press release. So I would first, caution your viewers against running out and going after the latest AI thing you read about. And not because it's not true and not because it's not real, although, cases may be, results may vary. But it's just, I think when we get excited about tech, we lose sight of the fact that as professionals, our job is to think about the outcomes that we're trying to pursue for the organizations in which we work. What is the outcome you want? Because the outcome might be achievable through AI. It might be achievable through system design. It might be achievable through leveraging the cloud. It might be achievable through leveraging edge processing on the camera. So what is it you want to do? And to your point, Sean, what we're seeing is the essential pragmatism of security practitioners shining through. And that is, doing investigations is time consuming. It's stressful because when there's an investigation to be done, every second counts. And you know what? As humans, we're not especially good at going through video surveillance data. And we're not good at going through access control data, ALPR data, large data sets that are recording and pulling in data from sensors over a period of 24 hours, 48 hours. It's almost impossible for humans to go through that in a meaningful way. We have to go to the washroom. We have to check our phone. We get distracted. We want to sleep. Humans are terrible in that respect. However, AI, really good, doesn't need a break. And it's especially good at finding the needle in a haystack. And that's where we're finding AI sort of really catching on right now. Now, in Genetec's, mind and the way we work is we are really allergic to black boxes. We don't like unexplainable events because once you get into unexplainable events, it's very hard to audit things. It's very hard to rely on data. And if a security operator can't understand it, it's very difficult for them to defend the investigation. So we like to approach it from the angle of what we call intelligent automation, leveraging the tech to surface those cues that are going to help you build that investigation storyboard as quickly as possible. And we've seen the investigation timeframes go down from 5, 6, 8 hours to a matter of 10 to 15 minutes, even less in some cases, because then you can start saying to the system, to the unified platform, click on a bag in the field of view of a camera. The system, because it's attached to artificial intelligence, it will know that when you've clicked on that bag, you probably want to know when that bag appeared in the camera and when it left the camera. This is the kind of thinking that delivers results because, yes, that is what the security operator wants. And then one step beyond that, I'm going to click on the fellow that picked up the bag, and I want you to automatically show me everywhere that person or someone who looks like that person has been seen across the estate of cameras. This is where you get into speeding up humans. And we believe from an intelligent automation perspective, we can sort of turbocharge investigations and the people doing the investigations, right? So from our perspective, that's where you guys see the greatest impact of innovation around AI. One, you understand the outcome you want. What is this going to do for your business? What is it going to do for your physical security organization? And if that answer is it's going to make us faster and more efficient, it's going to be a safer estate, it's going to be happier customers, then you're going in the right direction. If the answer is, however, boss wants AI because it's a gizmo he saw in the news last night, you may need to have a little bit more of a reflection on that because it could take you down some really expensive, time-consuming, and perhaps not as valuable paths as you'd like.
Yeah, well, one of those I just want to come back to because you mentioned earlier in our discussion in your last response, auditability or auditing. And the report flags major concerns around auditability and regulatory defensibility. How, from your research, should organizations test, document, and govern AI decisions so that they're explainable in audits and incidents?
This is an excellent question, John, and sadly a question that doesn't get asked enough as far as we're concerned at Genetec. Responsible AI should be when you're evaluating a vendor or when you're evaluating a new technology you want to put into play. Ask questions about responsible AI. The vendor should be able to articulate to you or point you to a spot on their website where they have clearly articulated their principles around their use of AI. These are really serious concerns, right? Where is the data coming from? What are you doing with that data? Does it respect local regulations? Do you have restricted access to those data sets? Have you articulated the audit trails around that data set such that if you are asked, you can, rightly say, I understand where the data came from. I understand how we collected it and from where. And I think we have to think about the privacy laws that are more and more coming into play. I'm sure you saw it in the report as well, but compliance is playing a much bigger part in the lives of security professionals. So you are going to get questions about, privacy acts. You're going to get questions about, your NIST AI frameworks. You're going to get questions about how did you train this and where did the data sets come from? Because, and it has happened that it has been found that data was illegally obtained without copyright or without, the proper channels being followed, such that the tools that leverage that data set become invalidated and you have to get rid of them, or you have to do an expensive upgrade because they're no longer useful. So getting that data early in the discussion is really, really important. It's just like, when we were discussing cybersecurity, we need to build that reflex to ask, okay, as a manufacturer, are you pen testing the solution? Are you answering the vendor risk assessment in an honest way? Are you reporting bugs in a way that's, clear, transparent, orderly? These are questions that we are asking about cybersecurity now. And now we have a whole host of new things showing up around the trustworthiness and safety of AI in our physical security pipelines. So, ask about the guardrails, ask about where the data is coming from, ask about the training sets and where that came from, and ask for the responsible AI document to show us, just give me the peace of mind that if I'm doing an investigation using your tool, that I can talk about where that data comes from.
Yeah, and the one that for me that stands out the most that a lot of people don't tend to talk about, and it's an end user issue rather than a vendor issue. Think very seriously about what data you need to collect, what is mission critical and what isn't, because I can't tell you the number of examples I have seen of organizations that just throw out the widest net possible and collect everything. And then later on, there'll be a data breach or whatever it may be, and they have to embarrassingly report that they've lost data on this, and this. And you sit there as an end user thinking, well, why did you even have that data in the first place? Why did you, and I'm just using this as an example, but why did you need my driver's license number for a camera? Or why did you need my date of birth for an access control point? Or all these sorts of things that just end up making you a target. Just be really, really mindful of what you're collecting. Is it necessary? Do you need it? Is it a mission critical essential? Are you seeing a lot of the collection? Do you have within the Genetec software the ability to be able to tick on and off with different radio buttons and all the rest of it and modify what data you're collecting and when?
Absolutely. And I think people, and as time goes by, it's my hope and my faith in humanity that we get better and we learn from our mistakes. But, the example you used about this sort of overreaching, collection of data that all of a sudden, when a data breach occurs, you're like, my goodness, why was all of that data sitting in some database to be exfiltrated to God knows whom on the dark web, and now I have to go and change all sorts of things and take care of that. Much the same in the physical security space, John. Like, you look at what physical security can capture. It's a massive amount of data. And that's why, I was talking earlier about our about our artificial intelligence capabilities around investigations. And when you want to look for somebody across an estate of cameras, we're not leveraging facial recognition because, first of all, it's very difficult to do and it's costly for end users to do, but we do something called similarity search, right? So we're doing that search across the estate based on similarities, same color clothes, same height, general, sort of easy to manage, parameters of the person, in the same area at the same time. This is a much more scalable way to do it than, capturing biometric data. So you get into this principle of sort of least access. What do you need essentially to do your job? Within Security Center, the unified platform, we also bring to market what we call Privacy Protector. And we introduced that years ago. I think in 2017, we introduced this feature because it was a demand we were getting, especially from our users in municipal governments, right? They were putting up cameras across their cities. They wanted a way to reassure their citizens that they weren't capturing, John and Andrew on camera, but they were capturing two guys on camera, but they were blurred out, right? And you could see that they were people, and you could see that, if you and I got into an altercation that, something's going on, we probably need to investigate. Within our platform, that we've given the extra step that if within your region or wherever you may have implemented this, if it's your policy to say, a security operator on their own can't unblur the footage, they need a manager to actually unblur the footage. Or we have something called the four eyes principle within our software, which says you actually need two people to agree to unblur the footage, such that, you can't get into a situation where you're needlessly unblurring it so you can, do something illegal with the footage. Many times in the past, we've seen, people who are sat behind security monitoring systems leverage these things to copy what's on the screen. And in the case of, high value assets, people who don't want to be, it could be you and me. I don't want to be on somebody's personal cell phone. Kids, places where people expect a certain degree of privacy, but still need to be monitored for safety. We are leveraging things like the privacy protector such that at the operator, you can just see the pixelated version of people. Or if they need to see the clear version, we watermark the screen. So if somebody is taking a video behind the operator desk, it'll say the name of the operator who's running the computer. And then there'll be a difficult conversation when it makes it to TMZ or whatever outlet they've sent the video to. So there's a lot to be concerned about in terms of privacy in the physical security space. But I think when you deal with vendors who are mature, who have a large client base and, clients who are typically security and privacy concerned, you're going to get the goodness from that development in the platform that you apply in your organization.
Okay. So to just switch gears slightly, the report shows that organizations are leaning more towards a hybrid model these days, including partitioning environments into security zones so that critical functions keep running even during cloud disruptions. In 2026, what's the best practice hybrid design for a multi-site organization that needs both agility and continuity based on what you've seen in the report?
This was something that came through loud and clear in the report this year, that hybrid is the way the majority of people want to go, right? All cloud, all on-prem seem to be not nearly as much of a favored option as really finding that happy medium between the two, such that you can manage your data on site and you choose what goes to the cloud, when it goes to the cloud, or even if it goes to the cloud. We have a lot of customers who want to archive all of their video surveillance directly on site, but they still want the goodness of the cloud, such as, cybersecurity patches, all the latest releases, the ability to manage their system remotely. They kind of want their cake and they want to eat it too, which totally fair request. So we've brought to market our new Cloud Link appliance, which is great. It's a headless Linux-based appliance, and it's remotely managed, so you can manage that device. But it also acts as a buffer to say, past this point, none of our data goes. Or indeed, you can say, yeah, everything goes to the cloud. This is just going to be a buffer to the cloud. What I really like about this appliance, and paradoxically, we call it the Cloud Link, is that it really does its most impressive work when you have a partitioning event, when you are partitioned from the cloud. Your ISP goes down, you have a flaky connection, whatever. It's completely seamless to the security operator. Everything keeps running. You have no interruption in your archiving, in your video, in your doors, your ANPR, your intercoms. Everything keeps running. And then as soon as the link is reestablished, however you have set it up resynchronizes to the cloud and life goes on as normal. Sure, during that time, you may not be able to remote into that system, but you can be resting assured that everything you have planned, all of your rules, all of your peer-to-peer within the LAN, network architecture, that's all happening. So the paradox is our Cloud Link works best when the cloud isn't available. So we're actually kind of keen on that. And I think security professionals now designing a deployment should really be putting that as, okay, how do I design to manage for this and to really think about the fact that networks go down. No one has perfect network connectivity all the time. So design towards that and really think about what that means. So we're quite excited about the CloudLink, and spoiler alert for your viewers, we'll have more announcements about the CloudLink line of appliances as we go through 2026. But these are very powerful design tools that are going to allow system integrators to design deployments for their end users in a way that's super scalable, really resilient, and our integrators love this. They can provision these systems remotely. They don't need IT on site. You just plug them in and, Bob's your uncle. So we're really leaning into the simplicity of it, but the simplicity hides a great deal of technical prowess that we've been really proud to bring to market. So I think in the coming years, we're going to see more and more hybrid systems being deployed.
Yep. So we've discussed AI, we've discussed cybersecurity, we've spoken about cloud, and all of these are aspects of modernizing security systems. So in that theme, I want to continue on the discussion of modernization because the report states that over 70% of systems are already unified or integrated, and the top reason for replacing legacy tech is integrating new technology. Up to 60% of the people do it for that reason. What are the risks of staying on legacy systems in 2026? And what, in your opinion, are the quickest upgrade paths that deliver without ripping everything out in the legacy system as it stands?
This is a very good question. I mean, your question about, what's the risks around legacy systems being implemented and staying, on the network? The list is long, but the number one item is risk. It's a risk that you shouldn't be taking. If you haven't been keeping up with, software patches and updates, you have a system that's vulnerable to cybersecurity threats, and nobody wants that. And I understand as well as you do, and your viewers will know, it's very time-consuming and costly to be updating systems, and that's why a lot of people leave them, just sit and cross their fingers and hope that it's properly air-gapped. And as we know, air-gapped is not a solution because as soon as something connects, things can go wrong real quick. I think that's the number one reason people should be keeping their software current. Even if they can't afford to upgrade to the latest version, keep current on patches, right? But what we're seeing, and from the report, it seems like the rest of the industry is seeing this is the time to be upgrading. And there's an enormous benefit to moving towards, a unified platform that's connected. We're also used to these things, right? We're used to our cell phones, and we don't sit down and it's like, well, today I'm going to upgrade my iPhone. It's going to take me hours and hours. It just happens overnight, right? You wake up in the morning, things are updated, my apps are updated, everything is doing what it should do, and I don't really give it a second thought. This is the future of physical security systems, right? People want that ease of use. They want that upgrade. They want the cybersecurity protection, but they don't want these heroic upgrade nightmares, where they have to shut down the system, call their boss, tell the CEO. Ugh, nobody wants that. So, as you start thinking about this, then the benefit really becomes quite clear to the end user. But then the problem becomes, gosh, how am I going to requisition all this money for a major capital upgrade? Because this fellow from California said to buy his system, I have to get rid of all of my cameras, all of my door hardware, and it has to go 100% to the cloud. I don't know if they smoke in California, but we don't do that in Montreal. I will say, however, that you don't have to rip and replace. And that's why going towards an open system that you can then bridge into sort of a modernized system is the way to go. And again, I come back to the use of an appliance like the CloudLink. CloudLink is an excellent way to take your existing security kit, whether that's those great Bosch cameras you bought 8 years ago, or the excellent, Axis PTZ that is certainly not end of life, but maybe isn't the newest model on the market, or a Hanwha, whatever you have. Bring those with you, leverage them into your new deployment. With an appliance like the CloudLink, you're able to access them now from the cloud. You're able to see them as a part of your bigger estate in terms of how you're monitoring. And you can add new things that you can do even more with as you go. And the same is true for access control hardware and for your ANPR and for your intercoms. You really want to be able to maximize the, sort of lifetime value of your equipment. And let's be honest, a lot of the equipment that's on the market in the last 10 years is very high quality kit. And some of it lasts longer than you'd expect. There's no reason to throw it out if you don't have to. It allows you to keep costs down in terms of upgrades and modernization of your system and gives you a smoother path into the future. Would we all like to do a rip and replace and put the latest kit in? I'm sure many people would, but the reality is it's time consuming. It requires a lot of downtime. And, I think a lot of people are not keen to go and ask for a whole bunch of CapEx if they don't really have to.
Yeah, the replacement of legacy equipment has always been an interesting one that stumps me on some level, because obviously many organizations don't want to be at the bleeding edge of technology because it's so new that you never really know what you're going to get. Some organizations like to be at the cutting edge of technology, but we're seeing more and more organizations, to your point about capital expenditure, sort of dragging their feet as long as they can, yet they'll replace staff phones, they'll replace staff laptops, they'll replace, CRM software, they'll do all sorts of things. I mean, if the IT department came to the board and said, listen, we know you love the Commodore 64s that we've been using, but we probably really need to replace our IT infrastructure, no one's going to question it, yet we don't have that same flow on with security. I mean, I know this is tangential to the discussion that we're having, but do you think that's because security managers need to do a better job of explaining to the board the value and the potential losses involved in not replacing that equipment?
Oh, absolutely. And, this actually isn't tangential, because in the report, we saw this come through as a clarion call. Like, we saw that with the sort of blending of IT and physical security expertise in end user sites, we see that they're, cross-pollinating their expertise. And part of that cross-pollination is really understanding and communicating a life cycle plan, which has been in IT for many, many decades now. But physical security, it really branched away from IT. And I think because it had its roots in CCTV and coaxial cable, a lot of people just looked at CCTV and access control investment more like overhead or a cost of doing business, right? You just put it in, forget it. It's like getting the air conditioning or plumbing, it's just there, just in case something goes wrong. But now with, over the last 20 years, we've really seen IP tech in the physical security space become super sophisticated, become a major player on the network, and really sort of mesh in together with the IT department, such that people are saying, oh, we can do a lot of really sophisticated things with this IoT network. We can understand our business better, we can plan better, we can give better customer service. We have a more resilient organization, a safer organization. So the more that gets communicated up to the board, and we have customers, over the last 5 or 6 years who have been leveraging our ability to, share data in data lakes, warehouses, things like Power BI, to communicate that around the executive table. People are saying, oh, there's a lot more to this than just a retrospective tool. We can be doing more with this to improve our business and really see this as a strategic function. And of course, seeing security as a strategic function is a no-brainer. You're not going to have much of a business if your executives, staff, and your assets are always at threat, right? So what we have seen is that the discussion is changing. We're seeing a much greater willingness to move towards an OpEx model, such as, you mentioned CRMs, ERPs. We're seeing people want to take that on. But at the same time, our position has always been, that's a second order question. The first order question is, what is the outcome you need for your business? What do you want to achieve by investing in a unified platform? Then we get into the question of, okay, what are your design constraints within your business? Do you want cloud? Do you want on-prem? Do you want a mix of both? And then the last question is, how do you want to pay for it? Do you want to pay CapEx all in one shot for like a block of 10 years? Do you want to pay for it regularly on a yearly basis? What's good for you? But that shouldn't define that first question, which is, what are the outcomes you're after? And I think getting those physical security professionals much more outcome focused, thinking along the lines of, how the IT team has sort of taken that, into the organization, thinking about modernizations of ERPs and CRMs and HRMS systems. That's really the level of discussion we're starting to see some of the most cutting edge and forward thinking organizations take about their physical security infrastructure.
Okay. So I want to pivot slightly because one of the biggest challenges I think the industry is seeing, not just in Australia, but across at least the Western world, if not globally, is workforce capacity. Jobs are getting bigger and bigger, sites are getting bigger, there's more and more call for security as the global environment changes. And one of the biggest challenges is finding people to actually carry that out. So we know that we're going to have to lean more and more heavily on technology over the next 10, 20 years moving forward, especially here in Australia. I've had a number of discussions in the last probably 3 or 4 years about the Brisbane Olympics in 2032 and how we're going to staff all of that. And from a technology capacity, it seems like the biggest constraint around technology and automation as an opportunity is highlighted in the report around the skills talent shortages causing project delays with training, upskilling, called out as a challenge in Australia and New Zealand, and notes that AI-driven automation may ease the pressure by making systems easier to use and manage. So in your opinion, in 2026, how should security leaders and integrators be redesigning operations to cope with skills shortages, and what gets automated and what gets standardized and what still needs expert humans?
Well, we're never going to get rid of humans, John. We're indispensable. I have skin in that game as a human being. But I will tell you, I think what we can do, and I touched upon it a little earlier, is really turbocharge the resources that you do have. So if you have resources, we want them to be as performant as possible, right? So you're getting more juice from the same lemon. Maybe I don't want to use lemons and humans as the same thing, but you get the idea. Yeah. So the idea is when you put together things like, within the unified platform, when something happens, you don't want the security operator to start from scratch and be like, I better go find the binder to see what to do when this happens. You want the system to be prepared and be resilient to actually get that workflow into motion as soon as it happens, such that the security operator then is really being cued along by the system and that they can do their job really, really efficiently. This allows you to do more. It allows you to do it in a way that's more auditable, that allows you to do better internal training. So you say, listen, we handled this event really well, but I bet you we could get our response time down in this section probably by another minute or two. And because the system is measuring that, you're really able to get those edges that count. If you're a hiring manager, having an edge around your existing employees is so essential. You need to be sure that the tools they're using are making them the best security professionals they can be. So that's why we've put so much emphasis on our mission control product and our operations center product. Operations Center, actually, within the Security Center platform, it's a completely new mindset about how work gets done in physical security, organizations. So often in the past, I've been in SOCs and they have like a picture of a be on the lookout for this person because we've seen them around the campus and they're not wanted here because XYZ reason. And I said to them, well, you have a lot of little like other security posts around the campus. Do they have this picture? oh, we didn't get it out to those campuses. And you realize that that way of managing work is probably not the most efficient, because then somebody has to come to the head SOC and it's a lot of back and forth. Whereas if you have a work board, you can pin on that work board directly in the OS, hey, be on the lookout for this person. They're being seen in this quadrant of the campus. This is what it looks like. So we're seeing that work management is helping them. Automation rules is also helping them get better. But then there's another thing, and this is where AI comes in. I already talked about how we can make investigations faster, but just the entire use of large language models across the unified platform allows you to bring in a different sort of type of security operator. For example, if you can't get the exact, seniority or the type of person you want, or somebody who's, perfectly fluent in the language you use all the time in your facility, you can still have somebody who can come in and leverage their, mother tongue using an LLM, because the LLM doesn't care what language you speak. It's going to be able to do those investigations in whatever language it is. So this allows you to then say, okay, this person understands, say, English, but they may not be fluent in it. They may not be able to, do queries in it, but they're smart. They can do queries in their own language. So this opens up a new, pool of people you can be talking to, because you don't have to demand quite as much from them around, investigations, report writing, leveraging the system to find things. The large language model kind of makes up for that. Again, like the automation, it sort of turbocharges the head count that you have. And as we look ahead to large sporting events, whether it's, the FIFA World Cup or the upcoming Olympics in Brisbane or Los Angeles, this is really where the Genetec Security Center platform is shining, because it's designed just for that. I mean, our book of business around the world is some of the largest organizations, most complex global operations, and they don't have time for faffing around with a whole bunch of different, our access control is on this Commodore 64, and many of them are of that era, John. And, our video surveillance is here and our ANPR is over there. No, when you look at these large events, they want everything in a single pane of glass, and they want all of the security operators tooled up with the best automation, the best large language models, and the best view of what's going on across, a very complex, crowded field of vision.
Well, we've covered a lot. We've gone from AI to system upgrade, modernization, cloud, hybrid, all sorts of bits and pieces. But there's a huge volume of data contained within this report. So let me land this with one final question to you. In putting this together, what was the biggest aha moment for you? The thing that caught you by surprise and really went, oh, I hadn't realized that.
That's a great question. So when we do this report, we start getting the data in, and I'll usually get a pulse of the responses. And so I had an Excel spreadsheet with the data, and I come across my desk in late November, and I was floored. There was this data point that really stood out, and it was basically a question. You're going to guess the answers to it, right? It's like, as an end user, what do you prioritize when you are buying or choosing, a product and a manufacturer for your end user organization? And of course, performance came out on top, price, capabilities, feature set, availability of integrators. Those were all in the 35 to 40%, 43% range of that was what people chose. But then there was this whole other data point at 73%, miles away from everything else that you would expect. 73% of end user respondents simply answered stability and longevity of the manufacturer. This is by far the biggest thing that people, both IT and physical security professionals, are prioritizing when they choose physical security vendors for their projects. And it's very simple. Physical security, is about the experience, the longevity. It's about the exposure to projects, around the world, the ability to understand the needs of end users. And yeah, that one really, really surprised me and reassured me because, as a company, we're just going on to celebrate our 30th year making Security Center and some of the best IP software for the physical security space. It was reassuring. And I think people don't want that sort of torque that, VC-backed companies or companies that are gearing up for an IPO will deliver, because so often, as soon as we see companies IPO, top talent exits, they got their money and they're not there anymore. So the innovation kind of dries up and, people kind of are left holding the bag at that. So longevity, stability, innovation over the long term, I think that's where physical security professionals put the emphasis.
Yeah, well, I guess that makes sense. I mean, we've all been to trade shows and seen the newest, latest, greatest whiz-bang thing made by company X out of what's newest done. And, you go out and you buy 50 of them and you install them around the site, and 2 years later, they're not round anymore. The thing becomes a brick. So understandable, and that makes perfect sense. Andrew, if people want to get hold of this report, where do they go?
Go to genetec.com. You can't miss it. It's all over the front page. It'll be there. We only allow the report to be downloaded until June. So make sure you do it before June.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you once again for your time. It's been a pleasure catching up. And ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you strongly, go out, download the report, have a read through it. There's lots and lots and lots of valuable information. And until next time, stay safe, and we look forward to speaking to you again.